Welcome to the For Real Though Show, the podcast with a purpose for the people. How y'all been doing out there, America? There's been a lot going on. I haven't seen you in a couple weeks, but do got a lot on my mind. So hey, let's get into it. I'm gonna try to. I'm gonna kind of spread out a little bit, but I'm going someplace. So kind of stick with me. What we're talking about today is like gangsters, gaslighting, chess, and grief. Gangsters, gaslighting, chess, and grief. So we're going to start with gaslighting. Uh, this is an important subject, and I want to show you that I know that there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of information, a lot going on politically, locally, nationally, and so there's a lot to be able to apprehend at one time, and I get that it can be overwhelming. I get that. Uh, But I think it's important that at least we're all on the same page and realizing what's going on, where, class warfare is, for instance, and how it affects you. Because if it doesn't affect you now, it's going to affect you later. So I think you really need to be tuning in. If you're not in the top, you know, if you're not in the top 1%, you probably really want to listen to this podcast. Um, because I'm telling you, the class warfare is real, just like racism is real, and they coming for us. They've been coming for us, in all these little sort of ways. So I just think, regardless of how you handle it, or as an individual, collectively, we at least need to know where we're being gaslit. We need to understand um, how information is given and distributed to us, and then we can make a choice on how we, react to it and deal with it. But one thing you don't want to do is just be caught off guard, not see it coming, and take it for granted, or worse yet, be on the other side of this thing, thinking that your oppressors love you, or thinking that, the people who are trying to take out your pocket are on your side. You know what I mean? And a lot of times that's where the gaslighting comes in, because we end up taking people's side who ain't on our side. Okay. So let's start here. Uh, Many of you, if you follow any college sports, there's been a push to pay college athletes. Okay, specifically in football and basketball. That's where colleges make most of their money. That's where NCAA makes most of their money through TV contracts, ESPN, Fox, Bally's, you name it, local cable deals. There's a lot of money. You're talking about billions of dollars between basketball and football specifically, and started years and years ago. Uh, from a performance perspective, the biggest case was probably the Northwestern case a few years ago. And from a name, image, and likeness standpoint, it started probably with Ed O'Bannon. He used to play at UCLA. Uh, there was a video game that had his name, image, and likeness on it. It was actually him playing with the uniform and his number 31 and his name on the back, playing his college basketball, this video game. But it had been years and years, and he wasn't even at the school anymore. So he's like, how are you guys still selling this, you know, with my name, image, and likeness on it? I'm not getting any money from it. So that was many years ago. And so California, recently signed a bill that said that, hey, if you're a college athlete, the school doesn't have to pay you per se. They didn't get into that, but they did say that you can make money off your name, image, and likeness. So if you're a college football, basketball player, whether male or female, you can you can go represent a car dealership. You can represent a restaurant. They can use your name, your image, your likeness to sell their product, and that would be something you could use to help with your uh laundry, pizza money, date money, or what have you, because again, you can't have a quote unquote job uh as a college athlete. Well, you can if you play certain sports, but not basketball and football, where it's mostly black folks. So let's put that out there. I'm not going to get into all the nuances of it, but again, most of you who follow that know. If you don't, then you can do a little research on it. So that happened in California. So some states are trying to get ahead of this, and they're doing things that are that really circumvent and undermine what California's doing. So let's start with Georgia. Georgia, you know who Brian Kemp is. He's the governor. He's the one who was the Secretary of State at the time when he ran against Stacey Abrams. Uh, Secretary of State basically controls everything ballot wise. Everything about the election, the Secretary of State controls. So he did that. And, you know, obviously he cheated. I'm not going to say he cheated Stacey Abrams because Stacey Abrams doesn't say they cheated her. Who he cheated was the voters of Georgia who wanted to make a different choice than him. Well, anyway, just I believe it was last week, last Thursday, he signed this bill at the University of Georgia, believe it or not. And he signs the law of HB 617. And that law goes into effect July 1st, which will be the upcoming semester. And it allows schools to take up to 75% of any college athlete's ability to make money off their name, image, and likeness. So for every dollar that an athlete gets based on, his name, image, and likeness, again, however way that may go, the school by law, by law, can take up to 75% of this person's income. And then they say they can spread it out and do whatever they want to do with it. Well, I don't know about you, but it seems to me that's what they accused Bernie Sanders of, which was socialism. Sounds like what they're accusing Joe Biden of, which is what they call it socialism. I didn't know that. Well, actually, I did, though. I'm being a little sarcastic, but I was going to say I didn't know that the Republicans were for socialism. Well, actually, they really are for socialism. They're for socialism when it comes to certain people, getting socialism. Colleges would tell you that what we do with the way we fund other sports, lacrosse, track and field, is girls, women's softball, is through these other sports, football, basketball, men's football, basketball. And again, I would say, well, if that's the case, if we are a free market society, then those sports should be able to collect revenue to support themselves. Would that not make sense? Would that not make sense? Of course it would make sense. But the fact is they're for socialism when they want to be for socialism. So, and again, just think about, it's funny again that he signed this at the University of Georgia. Well, I tell you what, I bet you Kirby Smart and Tom Crean, who are the football and basketball coaches respectively at the University of Georgia, I bet you they didn't like that bill. You know why? Because if I'm a kid, I'm saying to myself, if I'm a 5-star athlete, okay, you think I'm going to Georgia? You think I'm going to Georgia Tech? Okay, Jeff Collins, Josh Pastner. I'm not going there to play ball because you can take 75 cents on the dollar. You're already not paying me. Okay, unless you get it under the table. You're already not paying me. I'm already a quote unquote athlete student because I'm not a student athlete. Because when you go to these schools for football, basketball, best believe your obligation is to that team first, to that coach first, to that coaching staff first. And you have to take classes to make sure that, hey, you could get by, and stay eligible to be in that sport. So, it's a full-time job, to be, in your top tier college sports. It's a full-time job. So, that's the okie doke. That's so if I'm an athlete, trust me, I'm going somewhere else. And a lot of these, you're gonna see a theme in where I'm going today. A lot of these themes and these trends are all in red states. They're all in red states. So here's Kemp. He's gonna cape up for the university. He sees the writing on the wall. Hey, we ain't gonna be able to get away from this forever. So I tell you what, we'll let y'all get paid, and we'll just let the school take 75% of your side gig. That's crazy. All I'm saying is this: coaches, hey, schools, parents gonna be hip. AAU coaches gonna be hip. 5-star people who follow football, they're gonna get hip. They're just gonna go somewhere else. So what's going to end up happening is, you know, back in the day in Alabama, they didn't want to play. They didn't want any black athletes on their team. So word on the street is Bear Bryant, he understood that Alabama was going to have to get the black athlete, and how the best way to figure that out is to play USC. And when they play USC, and Sam Cunningham tore their asses up, tore their asses to pieces, then it was like, oh, I see now. The black athlete can really help us here at the University of Alabama. Yeah. So that's what's gonna happen. So, you know, so needless to say, it's real out here in these streets. They out here, you know, trying to get your money at every turn. And again, uh, to take 75 cents on the dollar of a student, quote unquote, student athlete, you know, I call them athlete students. But if you're gonna, but since they go by student athlete, then who do you think really needs that money? That person needs that money. You know, again, you know, to watch, do laundry, have a date sometimes, right? They might need a car repair, whatever. It's supposed to be a free market society. It's supposed to be a capitalistic thing that they say they believe in. Obviously, they don't in this case. So, you know, so let's talk more about gaslight. You know, I was in a men's meeting in church years ago, a couple decades ago, actually, and we were just having an open conversation, you know, amongst brothers and stuff. And one guy was in advertising, and he said he made the statement. He says, in advertising, we understand something. You think you know what you like, but in reality, we tell you what you like. We tell you what you like, and then you like it, right? And I had to think about that. Made a lot of sense. So, I mean, look, on the most basic level, you could say, hey, if you look at fashion, you know, shit, Kanye West got the ugliest shoes in the world, right? But because it's Kanye West, right, you got people out here buying these quote unquote Jeezys for all this money. It's no different than whether it's, you know, your favorite, you know, purse, your favorite pair of tennis shoes, whatever the case may be. It's all really just, you know, word of mouth. It's people telling you what you like, right? If they tell you the value of it is this, then a lot of people tend to believe it's this. So if I got this purse makes me look blah blah blah. So girl, she got a Louis purse, or you got a Michael Kors, or whatever the case may be, right? It doesn't mean that the quality is that much. It just means you bought into it, right? And we all are human creatures, so we buy into it. But the smart thing is to know what you're buying into, so that at least, you know, you're well aware of it, as opposed to being gaslit. So this is a gaslight situation that came through another way. It didn't come through advertising. It didn't come through a commercial. It came through the news. Came through the news. We have been gaslit through the news. Let me tell you how. A couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I was sitting there looking at the news, and I saw, bam, a work shortage, a worker shortage, right? Um, and basically what it was is, you know, post COVID, although we're not really post COVID, a lot of people are, you know, vaccinated. Numbers generally are going down. So, you know, a lot of these restaurants are opening up. And so it was mostly restaurants. And they were all saying, gee, I'm opening my restaurant back up, and I just can't get nobody to come to work. Can't get nobody to come to work. And I'm tripping off this. I'm watching this on the news, and I'm like, man, this is on the news? Like, people belly aching on TV about their restaurant on the news. And of course, what do? They blame they blame people's unemployment benefits for them not working. You know, people now, they don't want to come up because they're getting unemployment and they get this extra $300 a week. Uh, and so right then and there, I said, wow, that was a shrewd move on behalf, not just on necessarily on the restaurants, but on the news, because the news was promoting this, in my opinion, right? They were used as a tool are allowing themselves to be used as a tool either way to promote this narrative that people didn't want to go to work. So, you know, Idaho came out with this, what I call treat them like a hoe law, which he signed it, I think it was Tuesday, uh, in state pandemic participation in all federally funded pandemic unemployment program. So basically, it's taking taking the $300 benefit away. Uh, and this is what this Governor Brad Little said. Employers are telling me one of the big reasons they cannot recruit and retain some workers is because those employees are receiving more than unemployment than they would while working. Little said in a statement. We see help wanted signs everywhere. Idaho has the strongest economy in the nation, and we are a top 10 state for best employment. But there's more we can do. It's time to get back to work. So basically, what he's saying is all y'all lazy motherfuckers is out here sitting on your asses and don't want to go to work, which this is a gaslighting tactic. Because again, are we not supposed to be a free and fair market society? So anyway, needless to say, and not only, I'm going to get back to this. Needless to say, effective June 19th, they're taking away $300. This is also going on so far, I believe 11 other states, or a total of 11 states. By the way, these are all red states. These are all red states who are taking away your federal pandemic assistance program. Okay, they're all taking this away. And here's where the gaslighting comes. So I've got, you know, conservative friends on Facebook and whatnot, and other social media areas. And one of them in particular, he's always on he's a brother, and he's always like, oh my God, he carries so much water. And I don't think he even realizes how much water he carries, because he really looks down on poor people. He looks down on Black people. And so he had this post talking about this law where a lot of other, states again are taking away this money. And he's saying like, hey, yeah, that's right. You need to get your lazy asses back to work. Stop sitting on your ass, blah, blah, blah. And that's really just a misnomer. This started, I ain't gonna say it started here, but it definitely was reinforced by the Reagan administration, and the so-called welfare queen. And basically says that poor people, especially poor Black people, all they want to do is sit on their ass and not do nothing. But it's like the furthest thing from the truth. And also what it doesn't speak to, what it doesn't speak to, and we'll talk about this more in depth. What it doesn't speak to are the low ass wages that you're talking about. So like if you're a single mom or something, or if you're a single dad, or if you have a family and you're trying to go to work, but then you have to pay for childcare, and then you have to work part-time, you're not getting those benefits, right? I mean, look, if you're paying $100 and some dollars at least, I mean, it's been years since I had to pay for childcare, but I can't even imagine. I mean, it's really hard out here to find childcare, and if you're paying that, you know, uh, and then try to keep a roof over your head, it's really stupid of you not to take the money, because look, it's not like you're getting this money forever. You're only getting it for 9 months. You dig? But again, conservatives always talk like this, but they never talk about the wages. They never talk about, like, say again, because again, these are mostly restaurants we're talking about. And you know what happens in restaurants? Because I worked in restaurants for many years. The hours are very inflexible. Okay. So this is how it goes. You may be working in the morning. You may work in the afternoon tomorrow. You may work in the evening the next day, right? Mostly all those jobs are part-time. Okay. Unless you're the head cook or something like that, then you might be full-time. You might have one in the daytime, one coming in the evening, or what have you, right? One coming in, opens up, prep, blah, blah, blah. He works his 8 hours, other work their 8 hours. Okay. But when you work in jobs like that, like unless you have a really, really great employer, right? They're very inflexible. They're going to tell you we we need you when we need you. So, like say for instance, again, if you were supposed to come in at 10 o'clock, but they're like, no, I need you to come in at 9 or 8, or no, we're not busy right now. Come in at 2. Well, they're telling you we need you when we need you, and you don't have any power. I mean, look, most states now, especially the red states, are at will states. So that means they can fire you for whatever. Okay. When I was in St. Louis a few weeks ago, my great niece, uh, she works at a restaurant, you know, down the street from the house. Oh, hell, fuck it. She work at Applebee's. And so I'm back at my sister's house chilling. And I'm like, hey, what we gonna do? We gonna watch a movie? She's like, no, I gotta go pick Trent up from work. Did she just go to work? Yeah, they said they don't need her. So I hopped in the car, went and go pick my great niece up, right? So again, there is no what is there for her? She carved out her whole day and expected to work, right? Uh, so it's not like there's something in the program that says that, hey, if you were supposed to work this time, but then the restaurant let you go because they said they didn't need you and you were there for an hour, right? Then you just there to sit there and lose that money? That's fucking crazy. Again, restaurant jobs, these are the ones we're talking about, very inflexible. So my experience tells me this: if you have a job to offer, and whether it's restaurant or whatever, and your wages are competitive, you have benefits, okay, you have a certain type of relationship with people, they'll come to work. They'll come to work because people look. There is a very small percentage of people who want to just sit at home, very minute and small. But we make it seem like this is the gaslighting that it's just a bunch of motherfuckers doing it, and the reality is that's just not true. And it's one thing for a 1% is saying that to you. It's another thing for you to be saying this about your own people who are your peers. To want to go out here make these shitty shack wages. I mean, look, we can't get you to go $15 an hour, on a minimum wage. If you start from when we first had a minimum wage to where we are now, and add inflation and all that, the minimum wage would be like $24 an hour. Okay, but we just talking about 15. We can't get you to do that. Can't get you to do that, right? Can't get you to do that. But then they said, okay, you go make this $7, $8 an hour, and fuck this $300. Well, I tell you what. Again, the funny thing is, you look at a Donald Trump paying $750 in taxes. You know what they say? He's a smart businessman. Okay, well, he don't pay people. They say he's a smart businessman, right? When Jeff Bezos doesn't pay any taxes at all for Amazon, any at all, and your tax rate up the roof, nobody's bothered by that. See, we've been doing this for years. We do this with athletes, right? Why does so and so make this much money playing ball? Well, you never ask yourself, how does so and so make this much money with a team? It's a fucking baseball team. It's a basketball team, right? It's a hockey team. I don't see how the Dodgers should be paid $800 million by a TV company. That's ridiculous. You don't never say that. Why? Because you never identify with that person. But you felt like you could play some baseball, you could hoop, so you should be able to say what this person should make. See, you're gaslighting your own self. You fucking up yourself when you fuck with the labor of others. Just stay out of other people's pockets. You know. But again, man, I've worked in many restaurants in my day, and I'm telling you, it's you can make some good money if you're a server, you got good tips, if the service is great. And I tell you what, you know, the thing is you can pass these costs down. If you're gonna pay, you can pay person good wages and pass that on to the consumer. Because I go to nice places, and I pay for good service. I'd rather pay for good food, good service, they're really about their business, or tip really nice, because the quality is there. But a lot of these people, man, they just want you to pay for their retirement, but they don't want to offer something back to the community. They don't want to offer something back to their workers. And so, what I'm saying is we should be aware. We should be aware that When it comes to CEOs, hey man, look, the CEO ratio, let me look. I had it pulled up. The CEO ratio in 2019 was 320 to 1. 320 to 1. Do you hear people on TV complaining about that? Do you hear your governors, your senators saying, well, that's just ridiculous? What about the working class? You never say that shit. You know, I'm an independent contractor, in addition, you know, uh, to an employee, and I've been an employee, uh, looking to be an employee, right? But I've been an independent contractor for years. And, it's what Jay-Z said. He said, I'm not a businessman, I'm a business man. Okay. And the Supreme Court has already said that corporations are people. Corporations are people. So therefore, you have to do what's you have to understand that as an employee, or an independent contractor, specifically as an employee, because people who are independent contractors on their own business, they understand this. You have to understand as an employee that you are CEO of you, right? You're not just a pawn. You just not a bitch out here. You just not a hoe out here giving up some booty for nothing. You're trading away your services, your talent, your time, your attention, your expertise, to service and help somebody else's brand. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you should be treated and compensated as such for that, right? I've had these arguments with conservatives for years, when it comes to $15 an hour. Well, I don't think somebody making flipping a burger should make $15 an hour. Well, why not? Why not? Because anybody could do that. Why are you in their pocket though? Again, why aren't you worried about what you make? Well, I have a degree and I make such and such. Okay, well, maybe you should be making more then. Why aren't you fighting for more for yourself? If you feel like that's what you should be making, if you're not paying for what you're worth, then you should be doing something that promotes your well-being, paying for what you're worth, as opposed to being in somebody else's pocket. You dig? So, well, teachers don't make this, well, blah, 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 blah. Well, okay, so why are we fighting for more wages for them too? Right? So you don't have to have somebody down to make yourself feel good about your stinking wage. You know what I'm saying? So if you make $20 an hour, why the fuck you care if somebody making $15 an hour flipping a burger? Or whether they're making $25 an hour. If you're doing what you want to do for the wage that you accepted, then that should be good enough. But see, that's that whole quote unquote crabs in a barrel thing, right? So a lot of times it's just about ego. People want to feel good about what they make. So they want to feel socially above the person that's flipping a hamburger, or making you a sandwich, right? So you treat them like shit, but then you don't want them to piss and shit and spit in your damn food. You see what I'm saying? You want great service, right? You want all this top notch. You want them to pay attention to your order and make your shit with care, but then you want to. I hope you see what I'm saying. Um, I hope this is making sense. We really need to, you know, we really need to look out for those, not just ourselves, but just be about fairness, wages, stuff for everyone. Again, this is a capitalistic society. Um, at least it's supposed to be. That's what they say it's about. So, your services, your expertise is valuable, your time is valuable. Hell, when I flipped burgers, I was a hell of a burger flipper. You dig? And I was making $3.35 an hour. I remember working at McDonald's in East St. Louis, and then, the track team come or something like that, working 4 hours, making 3.35. So, my God, but I just fed the whole damn track team. And I mean, with hot fucking burgers and fries and Big Macs and quarter pounders with cheese and chicken McNuggets, McRibs. I mean, but I'm coming out of there with less than $20. Less than $20 for 4 hours. Right? Uh, but again, you got a lot of black people, man, especially, you know, uh, who buy into this, who gaslight themselves because they too want to feel like I'm better than you because I make this salary. My status is up here. And that's just some bullshit. We need to be better than that. We need to be better than that. So moving on. More gaslighting. More gaslighting. We have something called, some of you familiar with, the 1619 Project and critical race theory in schools. There's been a lot of big backlash about teaching critical race theory in school. So let's talk about what critical race theory is. I actually have it pulled up here. Critical race theory. Okay. Basically, and I'm just reading from, this is from the American Bar Association. Here's a few tenets to critical race theory. Recognize that race is not biologically real, but is socially constructed and socially significant. It recognizes that science, as demonstrated in the Human Genome Project, refutes the ideal of biological racial differences. According to scholars Richard Delgado and Jean Stefanik, race is the product of social thought and is not connected to biological reality. Two, acknowledgement that racism is a normal feature of society and is embedded within systems and institutions like the legal system that replicate racial inequity. This dismisses the idea that racist incidents are aberrations, but instead are manifestations of structural and systematic racism. Three, rejection of popular understanding about racism, such as arguments that confine racism to a few bad apples. It recognizes that racism is codified in law, embedded in structure, and woven into public policy. Critical race theory rejects claims that meritocracy or colorblindness, rejects claims of meritocracy or colorblindness. CRT recognizes that it is the systematic nature of racism that bears primary responsibility for reproducing racial inequity. Finally, recognition of the relevance of people's everyday lives to scholarship. This includes embracing the lived experience of people of color, including those preserved through storytelling, and rejecting deficit-informed research that excludes the epistemologies of people of color. Anyway, so what it's saying is you have basically different scholars and lawyers who are telling you that, hey, your critical race theory is understanding, hey, this stuff is a systematic thing. It's not a bad, it's not bad apples. It's not here and there. It's actually woven into the fabric of, the system. And so it's not really, it hasn't been taught in schools or anything. It's really actually postgraduate college is what it is. But because these white folks are so sensitive about, the history of racism and the way it's prevalent today, is they doing everything they can to stop it. So really it's to stop teaching it. So really what it is, it's a straw horse, if you will, because they're not even teaching it in high school. It's not taught in middle school, right? It's really a solution without a problem. You know what I'm saying? So, but to that end, it's not like they haven't already been finagling with histrionics anyway. So, for instance, this is from July 5th, 2015, an article. 5 million public school students in Texas will begin using new social studies textbooks this fall based on state academic standards that barely addresses racial segregation. The state's guidelines for teaching American history do not mention the Ku Klux Klan or Jim Crow laws. And when it comes to the Civil War, children are supposed to learn that the conflict was caused by sectionalism, states' rights, and slavery, written deliberately in that order to telegraph slavery's secondary role in driving the conflict, according to some members of the State Board of Education. Slavery was a side issue to the Civil War, says Pat Hardy, a Republican board member, when the board adopted the standards in 2010. There will be those who would say the reason for the Civil War was over slavery. No, it was over states' rights. Well, of course, we know it was over states' rights to hold slaves. However, so you see again that although they're attacking critical race theory, which is not even being taught in schools, again, unless you're, postgraduate level, they're already trying to change the history, right? They've been trying to change history and fabricate, what really goes down in this country. Isn't it not the same that's going on today when it comes to, the insurrectionists in January 6th? Got people out here saying that it was like all they was really doing was like tourists and they was taking pictures and shit, just doing their thing, at the Capitol, that people didn't really die. Uh, it's the same thing that's going on. So again, don't believe the hype. This motivation is strictly racist, denial, attempt to rewrite history, uh, as well as then and now. The evidence is clear. You know, uh, I mean, we can go back. You talk about history of slavery, Jim Crow, lynchings, convict leasing, voter suppression, redlining, mass incarceration, predatory lending, contact leasing, bank fraud, low housing appraisals, healthcare disparities, wage disparities, environmental terrorism, right? Same thing over and over again, but we got to be hip and we got to understand where we're gaslit. We just can't let this slide. So yes, for our sakes, we should talk about getting, I believe we should talk about, even if it's not critical race theory, some sort of race theory that tells the truth about the history of this nation. And beyond that, obviously as parents, it is our job to teach our children, the ins and outs, of racism and the history of this country. So that's all I have to say about that. So next subject, black folks talking about us. We love to say like these little clever things, right? Uh, and like for instance, man, we out here playing chess. We ain't playing checkers, right? That's something we like to say. And, I admire that. You know what I'm saying? We should be trying to play chess. I, for one, do not know how to play chess as far as the chessboard, but I understand the concept. Is you thinking moves ahead, right? You a move here, a move there, not just what you're doing immediately, but you thinking down the road, you thinking big picture, right? It's a whole conglomeration of how you're going to get your goals accomplished, right? And you got a little bit of art of war stuff going. You might be fake left, but you go right, and what have you. So, but when we say we're going to do that, then we have to be really careful that we're not gaslit when it comes to certain things. So recently, when President Biden gave his speech, his first speech to at the Capitol, you had Tim Scott, who I call the middle-aged mutant Negro turtle. He came out and shuffled, jived, monkey shined, did what he does. Um, and he made a particular statement. He said that America is not a racist country. So that made the airwaves. And then Vice President Kamala Harris did an interview with Good Morning America, if I'm not mistaken, and she made the same statement. She said the same sentence. I don't believe America's a racist country. Now, first of all, depending on who you ask and the context that they're talking about it in, they may or may not agree with you that America is a racist country, right? Because after all, they could say, "Hey, we did elect a black president twice. We did just elect a vice president, black female vice president for the first time in history. We got all different kinds of mayors, different politicians who are black, blah, blah, black CEOs, yada, yada. So depending on who you ask, depending on the context that they're speaking about it in, they may or may not say that. However, that being said, I got friends who just went in on Kamala Harris, and they're like, I want that same energy that you giving Kamala. I'm sorry, that you giving Tim Scott. You know, uh, they saying the same thing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, see, you got gaslit. Here's why you got gaslit. Because you looked at the headline, you didn't look at the fine print, right? So I looked at the interview because I wanted to see it for myself. It helps sometimes when you do a little research and you look at shit for yourself, right? And so I wrote down what she said. This is what Kamala said after she said, I do not believe America racist. She said, but we also have to speak truth about the history of racism in our country and its existence today. One of the greatest threats to our national security is domestic terrorism manifested by white supremacists. It does not help to heal our country, to unify us as a people, to ignore the realities of that. The ideal that we want to unify the country, but not without speaking truth and requiring accountability as appropriate. So basically, what she said well, I'm sorry, it's not appropriate. So basically, what she said is America's a racist country, but she didn't say it that way. She said basically America is steeped through and through in racism. That's what she said, uh, which is totally different from what Tim Scott said. But she didn't say the headline. And if she had said the headline, America's a racist country, then the other side would have just held on to that statement and would have ran with it, right? And so, unfortunately, we end up doing the same thing. Why? Because we grabbed a hold to the statement of her saying it's not a racist country, and we ran with it. We did the same shit we get mad at them for, right? So let me give you another example. Sometimes people say that sometimes people say they for the same shit, but it ain't for the same shit for the same reason. And this is where you're playing chess has to come in effect. You have to be smooth enough to understand what a person's really saying. Because look, the GOP telling you all the time, they don't always have to say, except for Trump, they don't always have to say, we hate niggas, we don't want niggas living with us. They say stuff like, hey, we're for law and order in our streets. That means arrest and kill niggas. So they don't have to go out and say that. So why is it that we're caught up in, why is it that we're caught up in the language of it all, right? Without seeing the whole picture. So let me give you an example. When I was living in St. Louis in the city, I remember there was a thing on desegregating the schools. And I think I might have talked about this before. So you had two sides, right? You had schools that were being bused. I'm sorry, students that were being bused from city schools to county schools, okay? And that was a problem. And so you had the mayor, at that time was Freeman Bosley Jr., Black mayor, city of St. Louis. And you had, county executives and everything saying that they were both against desegregation. So here's the reason. But see, you gotta catch the reason. So looks like they're united, right? They stand by side. We don't want desegregation. So, but let's look closely. The reason why the mayor of the city of St. Louis was against segregation, was against the segregation program and busing, was because for every student that goes to the school in the city, that's a certain amount of money that the school board gets, that the school gets to educate the students, to feed the students, lunch programs, after school, blah, 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 sporting programs, whatever, right? For every dollar that that student brings with him. Okay, so if he goes to the county, then that money's going to the county, right? So that's why he was against deseg. Now, the reason why the white boys was against deseg was totally different, because again, remember, they're going to get this money if the students go there. The reason why they was against deseg is because we don't want these nigger boys coming over here fucking our nice little blonde, white, pristine daughters. We don't want them, oh, he's the big man on campus. Look at him. They don't want big black buck pounding they daughters. That's what that is. They don't want race mixing, miscegenation, right? So even though they're standing for the same thing, it's for two totally separate reasons. So playing chess understands these dichotomies. Before you weigh in, before you come in with an opinion, you need to understand where everybody's coming from and why they're coming from there. regardless of whether you're going to end up falling on one side or the other. At least know what's going on and don't fall for the rhetoric, right? Here's another situation, gaslight situation. You know, you remember Governor Northam in Virginia? Remember he had the little blackface thing, and everybody wanted to cancel him out, because he had done some blackface back in the day, you know, and a lot of people who were progressives was like, yeah, he fucked up. Let him do his apology tour, whatever. But Governor Northam has actually been a friend of black folks. So instead of getting rid of him, we need to keep his ass. Let him do his apology tour, whatever he gonna do. But we care about these policies, right? We ain't really concerned about blackface. That was fucked up, cool. But you know what? I'd rather have somebody whose policies are in line. So on September 8th, 2020, Governor Northam in Virginia, okay, he signed voter protection laws that expanded access to early voting, provided prepaid postage on all absentee ballots, and allowed for secure drop boxes at several drop box locations. So, what was the result? The result of the election, Biden won Virginia with 54.11% of the vote, margin of 10.11%, the best performance of any Democrat since Franklin D. Roosevelt. Okay, so Hillary won in 2016 by 5.32%. Obama won 3.88% in 2012 and 6.3% in 2008. So basically, this guy Northam, he made a way for Biden to win the election just by opening up access to the voting polls, right? So is Tim Scott for that, or is Kamala Harris for that? Ask yourself. Because as there are signing all these voter restrictions, Jim Crow 2.0 bills around the country in these red states, right? You need to make a distinction between who's doing what, right? So, again, why would Kamala be stupid enough to say America's a racist country as vice president? Why would she do that? That would just be stupid. And again, because again, you give them the headline to grab a hold to. But then what do? Some of us grabbed a hold to the headline, and that ain't playing checkers, folks. Even athletes get media training, right? So when they say both teams played hard, shout out Rasheed Wallace, we have to go in there and do thus and such and get better every day. They're not saying what they really feel. They're not saying Tom Brady's not gonna say, you know what, fucking receivers suck, man. They dropping the goddamn balls, this, that, and the other. I wish the line would fucking block for me. There's some bullshit. He's not gonna say that, right? So there's a time when you should speak truth as it is. There's some time when you have to be like they are, and you could just call a thing, and do it smoothly, subtly, in a way that, covers your ass. And I think Kamala answered the question perfectly, right? So the point for us, man, we just need to be laser focused, on what really matters, right? Which is like right now, voting rights, policy, including whitewashing of our history, right? We have to make sure we keep this majority because our democracy really is at stake, and just like they coming for the extra $300, trust me, they're gonna come for that, whatever you get in your state benefits. They coming for that too. So, you have to start standing up for people, a good job paid for, a good job done, right? And we have to believe that everybody, should have the opportunity, you know, to make an honest wage, a decent wage to keep them out of poverty. And I don't think we need to give lip service, a whole lot of energy to those very few and small numbers of people who don't want to work. You know, uh, they're not scamming the system. They're not bringing the system down. What's really bringing the system down is people who don't pay their fair share. You know what I'm saying? Not a couple people here and there. And the fact of the matter is, if you are cheating the system, they're gonna catch up to you. They're gonna catch up to you anyway. It's people right now that owes different various states for filing false PEP claims. They're gonna catch up to you. They're gonna get you. So why am I worried about that? Why am I equating everybody in those baskets? Don't make sense. So anyway, with that, I'll close on that, and I'll get to something a little more personal. As many of you know, lost my nana recently. She's actually getting having her service today, and she would have been 105 in September. This is her. It's my favorite picture of her, by the way. And initially, man, I just got into this mode of tripping off of grief, like dealing with grief and processing grief. And so, initially I'm thinking, man, about the reality of the loss. It kind of comes in layers, right? Man, she's gone. So it hits your mind, and then, it kind of matriculates in your heart and your being, and it takes time. You wrap your head around that they actually gone. And then you go through the logic of it. The logic is, man, nobody lives forever. She hasn't been her best in a few years, so it's kind of expected. And then you go through the comfort part of it, right? But you try the comfort part of it anyway, which is like, well, she's in a better place. She's not in pain anymore. She's not locked in her body. God called her home, what have you. And then you kind of go through this pain of the loss, which is my loved one will no longer be accessible. I'll never be able to call them or talk to them or see them face to face. And these are all at odds with each other, right? They're all at odds with each other at the same time. So it's really hard to process, And what I felt like is, although it didn't make any sense, all these thoughts, feelings, emotions that are in conflict, you just have to sit in it. You just have to sit in it. There's nothing really you can do. There's no logic or theory that's going to make you feel better. You just have to sit in it. But anyway, it prompted me to start studying different ways different cultures grieve, because um, I believe that grieving, it really is a very important process that people should go through. And, you shouldn't deny your grief. A lot of times people, when they go through that, hey, she's in a better place or whatever, I know what it's meant to do. It's meant to, put it in some context, you know what I mean, to make you feel better. Uh, but it shouldn't be used in a way, again, to stop your grieving, because you should grieve. You should grieve. So I got to study different ways different cultures grieve, because uh, there are certain cultures and certain religions that they grieve a certain way. And so it becomes a tradition for them. I don't really have one of those, right? I don't really have one of those, but I'll give you some examples that I just read up on. So Hinduism, the mourning period is limited to 13-day period. It is thought that if someone laments too much, then it will be harmful to the soul of the deceased. Uh, Islam. Islam requires a specific period of mourning. Family and friends of the deceased mourns for 3 days. However, widows must mourn for exactly 4 lunar months and 10 days. When people are in mourning, it is acceptable and expected to show your grief by crying. However, wailing, shrieking, and tearing hair and clothes is not permitted. Jewish funerals are short services that involve intense mourning rather than being part of a larger service. The main mourning period, called Shiva, occurs in the 7 days following. It's probably Shiva. The main mourning period, called Shiva, occurs in the 7 days following the funeral. That is when the family mourns at home and with friends to stop by to offer condolences. During this time, the family focuses just on the mourning and nothing else. To symbolize this, all the mirrors in the house are covered up, and the family must sit on small, uncomfortable chairs and wear mangled black ribbon and slippers, and men are not allowed to shave. These practices are all meant to make people concentrate on the deceased and forget about comfort and appearances. One of the ones that always intrigued me was the funerals they do in New Orleans. The jazz funerals, if you will. Where they have a brass band. Uh, and they started a funeral home at the church. Throughout the march, the band plays somber hymns, and changing the tenor of the ceremony takes place after either deceased is entombed or the hearse leaves procession, and members of the procession say they find a goodbye. They cut the body loose. Afterwards, the music becomes upbeat, and they start singing with a hymn, a spiritual number, but they play it in a swinging fashion. Then goes into popular hot tunes. Then they just get to kicking it, right? And then those who will follow the band to enjoy the music called the second line in their style of dancing, in which they walk, sometimes twirl a parasol or a handkerchief in the air. This is called second lining, right? I've always found that to be cool. I would love to see one of those one day. And of course, the Baptists, the Baptists just fall out over the casket and be like, Lord, take me, take me. I'm just kidding. Uh, so either way, man. Again, I just think rituals are important. I don't know that one is more effective than the other. I think it's just a matter of you processing it the way you see fit. I'm not gonna hold myself to anyone, process. Whatever my spirit has, whatever my soul says, I'll rejoice in that. But I do think it's good to have something, for tradition, if you can. So anyway, that's it, man. I know I'm rambling all over the place, but it was a lot on my mind. You guys stay safe out there. Subscribe. You know where to subscribe. Appreciate you. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Keep it real. Peace.